What's happening, legends? Welcome back to the Becoming Reborn podcast. Now, today we're going to talk about why are you plateauing? Now, I've got none other than Reborn's finest, D Wagnalls. Now, D Wags is also our head of programming. He does all the programming for the network, and I don't know if this means anything, but he's very easy on the eyes too. So if you're watching on YouTube, you are welcome. If you're listening on via podcast, look, I'm sorry, but you need to do yourself a favor and get on YouTube and watch it. D-Wags, it's great to have you here today.
Hello, mate. Good to be here as always.
As always, you look fantastic.
Thank you so much.
I'm so sorry that I haven't mentioned it enough today.
That's all right,
I'm honest.
It's totally fine.
That's so good. So today we're going to be talking about like people that are plateauing, and you actually helped me with this. With my own training, I think a fair few people know this. I like to rev the engine at 6 or 7 all year round, just as hard as I possibly can. And quite often, like I get myself to a point where I almost burn out. And I remember talking to you about this, and it's like, all right, well, what you really should be doing is like having like you peak and then you come back down, and you peak and then you come back down. Whereas I would just often just go. Rrr. We're about to finish a training block now towards Harper. Thank God for that. This bloody fundraiser is going to kill me every year. And then after this week, I'll gladly have a proper deload week and then restructure and then do another program which will ramp up opposed to just going straight back into it like I normally would.
Yeah.
Where I'd peak. Now, I'm just going to go through a few questions today about, why people plateau, but what's your thoughts around plateauing?
Plateauing is honestly, all it comes down to is actually just not having the right system in place to follow. Because essentially plateauing means that you've either been doing, I guess, the same thing for too long without any intention to progressively overload. And I feel like progressive overload is a bit of a buzzword in the fitness industry, but it's true. It's factual. If you are not consistently trying to make progress through overload of some sort, and I don't necessarily just mean by adding more weight all the time or adding intensity in conditioning sessions.
Actually, can we just touch on that so people understand? So if it's not just weight, what are the other ways that they can overload?
Okay, so if I'm talking about in a strength session, we've got adding weight is a way to overload. We've got adding reps is a way to overload. We've got adding sets, so more sets. We've got decreased rest, and then we've got tempo, so how quickly you perform the rep.
You guys are so welcome. I know that there's about 90% of the people out there. You just learned some more. Well done.
Well, that's what this podcast is for, right?
Yeah, you just went whack, 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 whack.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
And then I guess if we're talking about conditioning, so like running, erg work, all that sort of thing, you can kind of look at the same metrics and go increased duration in time, decreased rest period, higher output, for example, on the ergs, so like, higher calories per hour or faster speed. A range of different things that you can use.
And then even with running, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah. Hill work.
Yeah.
Track work. Longer runs.
Yeah.
More sessions. Yeah. Lots of different ways you can overload.
So I think a lot of people, when they go, all right, progressive overload, I'm just going to lift heavier.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go faster on the ergs, and then when I'm running, I'm just going to go. I'm going to run a little bit quicker.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's actual methods around it.
100%.
Multiple methods around it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting actually because there's been a lot of talk recently around, I guess for me, looking at how people like to come in and train. And at the end of the day, people like to train how they train, and that's sweet. And at the end of the day, if people are consistently coming in and getting a session done, really happy with that. But if people are finding that they're not getting fitter or stronger, and we look at how they're training and there's no structural system to it, then we have to step in and go, okay, cool. Like we need to have a look at what you're doing. Like there's actually a great example. People generally think more is better. More is not better. Quality is better.
Yes.
And that's where, again, minimal effective dose.
Oh, what to say?
If we could get you the result you want by doing less work, but quality work, I'm sure 99% of people would probably jump at that, right? You look at, there's a guy, Australian strength coach. He coaches Thor Bjornsson, strongest man in the world. His main set when he's in like a peak training phase, he might do back squats and some leg extensions, and that is all he does in his session. Whereas I guess general population think the quality of a session is determined by how much work is done within the session. So like multiple exercises, heaps of sets, heaps of reps, but that's not actually the case.
Wow. I remember like back in the day, the personal trainers would be like, yeah, man, I do like 9 different, I don't know, I just went American, but we'll go with it.
Go with it.
He's not American, this guy, but we'll go with it. He's like, oh, man, I do like 9 different sets for my shoulders.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck, I don't even know 9 exercises to work out my shoulders.
100%.
Yeah, I remember thinking, geez, that must be a long workout, but good on him.
Yeah.
He didn't have big shoulders either, so.
That's probably why though.
Yeah, he's doing too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, cool. So how much of plateauing comes down to people just doing the same thing over and over?
A lot of it. I think 100% a lot of it. And the thing is, like when we talk about, you can do the same exercises over and over and over. No problem with that. Get some variance elsewhere, right? If you just want to do your leg session, you want to do back squats, you want to do deadlifts, you want to do dumbbell RDLs, and you want to do step ups for life, sweet. But mix it up with rep ranges. Do 12s for a period in time, do 6s for a period in time, and make sure that you are working to the appropriate intensity.
Yeah.
As well. So I guess talking about, all those metrics of overload we spoke about before, it also comes down to applying the right intensity to the given exercise or the given session as well.
It's a bit of a trick question too, because correct me if I'm wrong here, D-Wags, but in order for you to get results, you do have to continue to do the same exercise or the same, it might be the running or the yogs or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you've just got to apply the variance, like
100%, 100%. And I know that's definitely something that people here at Reborn love. They love variety, and they view variety as different exercises.
Yeah.
Well, guys, there's only so many ways you can squat. There's only so many ways you can press. There's only so many ways you can hinge, right? Where the variance comes in which is why we program the way that we do, is the variance comes in through, as we said, the sets, the reps, the rest period, the tempo that we work at, and then obviously changing some exercises to a degree as well. Like for example, a squat pattern, we'll back squat for a while, but then we'll add front squats in because it slightly changes the dynamic of the squat pattern.
Because the reality is, if there's too much variety in what you're doing, then there's going to be a lack of results.
Yeah.
So you need to have the consistent themes throughout, but you've just got to change the variance in terms of like what the overload looks like.
100%. It's a great example is actually CrossFit athletes, right? So when CrossFit first came out, on the outside looking in, it just looked random all the time. And I know in early CrossFit games, they would literally have a bunch of exercises in like a big drum that they'd roll around, and then they'd reach in and pick something out and go, all right, this is the workout. This is what we're doing. So yes, it is random, but their whole philosophy is like be prepared for the unknown and unknowable. So essentially be prepared for anything.
Yeah.
But what people didn't see is actually the training programs that these high level athletes follow in the background. They're doing back squats 2 days, 3 days a week. They're doing deadlifts 2 or 3 days a week. They're doing presses. They're not mixing shit up all the time. They're just training multiple modalities systematically in the background so that they can be prepared for something random that gets thrown at them in competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's CrossFit doing at the moment though?
Yeah, not much.
It's been strange the last couple.
Yeah. I think it's gone through a number of different ownership hands, and anyway, getting off track there.
Yeah. Anyways, let's go to my next question, because that CrossFit is really confusing me at the moment. All right. So you talk a lot about intent, right?
Yeah.
Like in these 4 walls. What do you mean by that, and how does it affect results?
So intent, I guess intent/intensity going into the session, planning to work to the right intensity. For example, I'll take our strength phase at the moment. We're in week 3 of our strength phase down here at Reborn, and the intention of our week 3 of our power phase, we're doing 5 reps. So 5 reps, that's low rep range. It should be very heavy weight. Going into that session without the intention of I'm going to work to like an 8 or 9 out of 10 RPE,
Yeah,
is I won't say you're wasting your time, but don't expect to get any further results if you're not willing to work to the intensity that's required.
Yeah.
And I have seen members will go from a 4-week phase of doing 8 reps, for example, not progress in weight as we drop down into 5 or 6 reps. And it kind of defeats the purpose of following that sort of linear progression. But I guess intent with anything, if you're not going into it trying to get the most out of it with whatever's prescribed for you, like a track session or a conditioning session in the main arena, if you're not going into it with that intent, then, don't expect the results from, the work that you're not prepared to do, sort of thing.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
All right. So if someone feels stuck right now, what's the first thing you'd look at to help them break through?
First thing I look at is consistency. That's always the first thing to look at. If you are inconsistent, expect inconsistent results or no results at all. Following on from consistency, if the person is consistent, I'd look at intensity, the intensity at which they're performing any workout. It doesn't have to be in the strength room. It can be in the main arena, boxing, Pilates, whatever it is. I'd look at what's the session designed, what kind of outcome is the session designed to produce. And I'd look at whether that person is actually applying themselves to what the session requires. So consistency, application of intensity, and then I'd also look at, I guess, the person's mindset and belief in what they actually think they're capable of. Because a lot of the time I've come into a session and made an adjustment to someone on the rower in terms of maybe technique, for example, and they've actually been able to get more output. Or I've walked into a upper body strength session and, looked at someone's bench press technique and I guess the speed of the bar and added a little bit more weight on there and showed that they were actually capable of more with the right support. So probably those 3 things. I look: consistency, application of intensity, and then, for example, technique, areas that they can improve upon, for sure.
Love that. Well, that rolls into the next question. What are 2 to 3 simple changes someone can make this week to start progressing again?
I would look at, that's a great question, to make progress again. I'd probably get them to ask themselves those questions about consistency and application of intensity, probably more than anything, those 2 things. I know that there's some people that like to come in here, and it seems to be a thing at Reborn. A lot of people hate rest, which is something for me that I feel is a bit of an uphill battle that I'm trying to educate people on about the value and the importance of rest. I actually put a video in the Reborn Legends Club a couple of days ago about the value of rest.
Yeah, teacher D-Wags, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
The whiteboard, it's not a whiteboard, it's a touchscreen TV, you're welcome.
Yeah.
But
we'll
it was
call
good
it whiteboard
stuff.
sessions though.
Yeah.
But yeah, the value of rest, like I know, and again, going back to, if coming in here and just moving your body is your goal, amazing. Like, happy for you to come in and just move the body consistently for 40 to 45 minutes. But if you actually do want to get results, and going back to that question, is what a couple of things people can do is, like, look at the session, understand that there's 15 years worth of knowledge and experience that's gone into writing it for a purpose, and try and apply yourself to the session the way it's written. And you'll actually be shocked at this type of results and improvements in fitness and strength you can gain if you commit to following the programs as they've been written, for sure.
Fantastic. Now, we're going to give the audience out their little sneak peek behind the curtains of what we do at Reborn. So can you take us behind the scenes? How do you actually structure a week at Reborn? And we'll start with a strength program, not necessarily just a week, because I know it's a full block.
Yeah. So the strength program, or the strength room, works in 12-week cycles. And within each of those 12-week cycles, we have 3 4-week phases. This is a very, very simple way to program for mass participation. It's not the only way to program. I'm definitely not saying it's the best way to program. I'm saying it's a way that is able to produce results for mass participation in a gym like this. So over 12 weeks, we will have 4 weeks of hypertrophy, where it might be 10 to 12 reps. We will include things like supersets, trisets, a mixture of compound lifts, so multi-joint lifts, and then isolation lifts, so single joint lifts. From our hypertrophy, we'll progress into a strength phase, which is, maybe 6 to 8 reps. And again, we'll, have a mixture of supersets or drop sets in there with those as well. And then we go into 4 weeks of power where we test 5 rep max lifts at the end of it. So essentially over 12 weeks, we are progressively decreasing our reps and increasing the expectation of weight lifted in order to get people progressively overloading over time. At the end of that 12 weeks, we basically restart. And then when we restart, we might have, instead of 3 sets of 12, we might go to 4 sets of 10 for our main lift. And essentially it just rolls through that 12-week cycle throughout the year.
That's fantastic. And you got the whole year planned out ready to go.
Whole year's already planned out. I like to be able to look at a snapshot of the year and go, okay, great. I know that our next hypertrophy phase coming up in a week and a half's time or a week's time, we have 3x12 and our accessory work will be supersets. So we've got 2 supersets, a mixture of compound and isolation work.
And that's that variance you're talking about.
That's right. That's the variance, right? And we're doing squat patterns, hinge patterns, push patterns. Like, as I said, there's only so many ways that you can perform each of those movements. And the variance comes in, I guess, how we apply our reps, our tempo, our rest, and so forth.
Love that.
Yeah.
And then you don't write all of the conditioning programs for the main arena, but you oversee them. Now, what's the general structure for, let's just start with, like, what's a week look like at Reborn?
Yeah, so a week at Reborn in the main arena, first of all, we have a look at the different types of session that we have. So for those that have been coming to Reborn for a long time, you will know that Monday is con day, Tuesday, Thursday is strength and con, Wednesday is refit, Friday is hit, and Saturday is a partner's workout. So first of all, we needed to define what each of those sessions looked like and what those sessions consisted of. I look at con day and I think that session should be 80 to 90% conditioning work, running, ergs, and then body weight.
Yeah.
Tuesday and Thursday, strength and con. The split should be around 70% strength work, 30% conditioning. Wednesday on refit is, I guess, just a long for time workout.
I still remember your description of this.
Yeah. 100% rule my life.
That's the PG version of it.
The PG version of refit. And then our hit session on Friday is obviously high intensity interval sessions. So you're getting a really good mixture of intensity and purpose across those 5 days. And then our Saturday session, we describe that one as 100% fun. It's a bit of a mixture, partners workout, always plenty of fun.
Somewhere between like a hit and then also
a con day. Yeah.
And I just want to touch on the hit. I think that's the one that people get wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Where Monday and Wednesday, they're conditioning classes and it's pretty much just balls to the wall from the start, right?
Yeah.
And it's just long, and it's a grind.
Yeah.
Whereas Friday, they want it to be different, but at the same time, they don't respect the rest.
Yeah.
Now, the whole idea about high intensity interval training is that it's interval training.
Absolutely love everything that's coming out of your mouth right now, Trav.
Yeah. I'll leave that there. But I want you to know I love you.
Yeah.
Okay. But high intensity interval training, right? So all the listeners playing at home, that means there's going to be some rest. But it also means that it's going to be high intensity. Yeah. So if the block is only 20 seconds on, you've got to give it absolutely everything you've got for 20 seconds because that's the minimum amount of time that you're working. Yeah. Now, I think where our members, and I'm sure we're not the only gym that has these problems where people just want to move. If you give it everything you've got, that 20 seconds is more than enough time for you to get out of it, and you're going to need the rest. Yeah. So, yes, we understand you want to just come in and move, but if you apply yourself like how the session is written, my goodness, those are the worst sessions. Tommy Carr runs these sessions every Wednesday, and they're con game sessions. The worst ones are when we see on the board there's the minimal amount of work. When it's just the 4 machines. Yeah. And you see there's like a 20, like a 15 or a 20-second block, and you just look at that and you go, this is getting horrible. And you do the maths. Yeah. Everyone does the maths. It's like 4 minutes of work total.
Out of a 30-minute session.
Out of a 40-minute session.
40-minute session, yeah.
So it's 10% of the time where I'm great at maths, by the way.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you so much. So 4 minutes over across 40 minutes. And yet like some of the fittest, if not the fittest guys in the gym are out the back vomiting after they're on the ground and it's only 4 minutes of work. I'm sure that's enough work for everyone else as well.
100%. And I think that's like, that is actually a great example of 4 minutes worth of work out of a 40-minute session. You look at that and you think like, that's not much at all.
No.
But again, the application of intensity is there. Now, I will say in defense of, I guess, people that aren't athletes like yourselves, some people don't have the power or the ability to generate enough power or force to elicit that response on any of the ergs.
Yeah.
Right. So we definitely understand. Like I often sometimes say like there almost needs to be a different program for like the 5 and 6 group, the 8 and 9:30 group, the afternoon group, because the demographic of people that you get in during those time slots is so different.
Yeah, it's different personalities.
So different personalities and also different and varying levels of fitness and ability. But as I said, like you guys are able to get that response from that session because you're all strong and powerful, right? There's people, and this is not in any way meaning to offend anyone, but like some people just don't have that strength and power to produce that much force to get that response.
Yeah.
But again, with that being said, like if you're coming consistently across the week, there is multiple opportunities for you to still get great sessions in and great workouts in. But I guess off the back of explaining what a week looks like, the main arena also has a 9-week cycle of how it works, similar to the strength room, where the first 3 weeks are our capacity phase, which we're currently in the middle of at the moment. So capacity means long work periods, higher rep counts, minimal rest. Then it goes into 3 weeks of threshold training. So our work periods will drop, our rep ranges will drop, and the intention is to, I guess, put out moderate to high power and intensity for shorter bouts of time. And then finally, our power block, you're going to see very low rep ranges, heavy loads, more rest, and shorter work periods. So like the intention is for you, as you said, with the HIIT sessions, is to try and give as much power output as possible in a short amount of time and really earn and enjoy the rest.
Now, my next question, you're kind of answering it, right? Well, I think you might be. What's the biggest thing members don't realize about how much thought goes into programming? And I think there's a few members out there realizing right now how much thought actually goes into programming. It's not just, hey, what do you reckon we should do this week? It has been that, by the way. Real quick story. I Keep It Young, right? So Keep It Young was my first gym. Me and AJ would be like 5 minutes before a class. We had no structure every day. Yeah. It was like, whatever you felt like you wanted to do, we would do. I remember like multiple times we standing like 5 minutes before the class starts. People would be walking in the door. I was standing at the whiteboard. I'm like, AJ, what do you reckon we do today? And he'd be like, I don't know. I reckon we do some like fun stuff. I'm like, all right, what does that look like? He's like, I don't know, sleds and balls and dumbbells. And I'm like, say less, brother.
Sounds good.
And I would just write a program to that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
In saying that, I end up developing a good skill of like writing on the fly and being able to, you know, just change things if I need to. But people don't realize how much work and effort you and the team, like I listen to you guys. Like one of my favorite things is listening to you and the boys go through the programming every week, and you know what changes, what's needed, where can we be better. It's the same as when I listen to Pat and Blakey talk about like their sales meetings. Like it's so cool to hear the in-depth conversations that you guys have around these things that people wouldn't have a clue about. They would just think that we're just throwing these things up there. So. Sorry for the long-winded, and I'm coming back to the question. What do you think people don't realize about the programming?
I think just specifically that there is a method to it and a purpose behind it. It's something that I actually take great pride in, and I think that's why I get sometimes a little bit of a bee in my bonnet when I'll be on the gym floor coaching a session that I guess in particular I've written, knowing that if you do this session correctly, it will be very challenging, but it will get you a good result. And I see people changing it for no other reason than they just don't want to do an exercise or they don't want to have the rest. But then I look at their output throughout the session because they haven't, you know, earned the rest period, and their output slowly declines because, you know, the old law of diminishing returns. Like if you're trying to hold a high output for particular amount of time, eventually your output's going to decline pretty rapidly. But I think, exactly as you just said, like there is a method behind it all, because I guess going back to the initial conversation about progressive overload, regardless of whether you're trying to get stronger or trying to get fitter, there has to be a way for you to make progress through making it progressively more difficult over time.
Now, we touched on this one before, or I touched on it, but I want to hear more of like what you've got to say about it. Why is variation so important, but also consistency at the same time?
This is I guess an interesting one, because like, I guess my perspective of variation would probably differ to a lot of the members' perspective of variation.
Yeah, agreed.
Right?
How we both read that's probably different to how they did.
Yeah.
You explain how the members think of it first, because I actually wrote that thinking of how we think it.
Well, most people would probably look at variation and think you're doing something different all the time, right? Whereas like let's talk about a HIIT session, for example. If I was going to do a HIIT session, I would be more than happy to do a bike erg, rower, ski erg every single Friday.
Every single Friday.
And go range from like 2 minutes on, 1 minute off for 10 rounds on each. Or, 20 seconds on, 40 seconds off for, which is a total of a minute. And I go 10 rounds on each. Yeah. And I'd be happy to do that every single Friday. Whereas I think for people that attend the gyms, they view variance as, well, hold on, we did like a, interval session on the ergs last Friday. Let's put some body weight or dumbbell or kettlebell stuff in there, or let's do something different. But the problem with doing something different all the time, as we spoke about before, is that it produces inconsistent results, because you don't have a measure on how you're progressing from the week or two previous, because you're doing something completely different in this week.
So people have got to look at variety in a different way. It's not just if you just keep changing the exercises, then you're not going to change your results.
Yeah.
But if you can show variety in those different methods you've spoken about, then you're able to apply consistency and still have the variety.
Yeah.
So you give them what they want and what they need.
100%.
You guys are so welcome. All right. We're going to close it up now. If someone just rocked up, followed the program properly, and trained with intent, what would happen over 12 weeks? Go both in like the strength. Oh, no, actually go over both.
I would say it probably depends on the person that's turning up, because a well-trained person would probably see the value in the program. Because if they're well-trained, they probably understand the principles of progressive overload and getting results.
Yeah.
So their progression curve would probably be minimal, but they would probably find enjoyment in the program. Someone who has a low training age is a relative beginner to a gym, or to strength training, or to the type of sessions we do in the main arena. If they were consistent and turned up to the same sessions every week, let's say they did 4 sessions a week. They did Monday in the strength room, upper body push. They did Tuesday strength and con. They had Wednesday off because people don't like to come to refit.
Goes Pat's on it. Yeah, makes sense.
They did Thursday strength and con, and they did Friday lower body in the strength room. So 2 strength room sessions, 2 main arena sessions, great mixture of strength and conditioning in there. I guarantee you they would be fitter and stronger after 12 weeks if they did not miss a session during that time, and they experienced variation via the program that we write. Their progression curve generally for people who are newer to training is a lot steeper and a lot more aggressive than someone who is well-trained like yourself.
Appreciate it. My ego needs all the compliments it can get. All right, guys. So that is like a little behind the scenes of Reborn, but also that is how you guys should be looking at your programs from here on in.
Yeah.
All right.
And if you've got any questions at all, please don't hesitate to come and ask. I'm not too proud to take feedback on the programs. I'm absolutely willing to hear anyone and everyone's thoughts. But just so you guys know, we care about it, and we care about it because we know that it's going to give you guys the results you're after. Exactly.
And why we program, or why D-Wags programs the way he does, is to prevent the plateau as well. So you can always feel like you're moving forward. It always feels like you're progressing, whether that be in the strength room, whether that be in your running, whether that be in your conditioning as well. So we're always improving every single day. We're staying away from that plateau.
Yeah.
Let's go. Peace!